The story begins with a girl named Casey, sitting absent-mindedly in a restaurant during her classmate Claire's birthday party. Afterward, Claire confesses to her father that she only invited Casey out of pity. With a bored expression, Casey calls her foster guardians to pick her up. Withdrawn and troublesome, she belongs to no social circle and has no one to go home with. Claire's father ignores his daughter's complaints and waits to see if Casey's guardians arrive. When their car breaks down, Casey decides to take the bus, but Claire's kind-hearted father insists on driving her instead. Casey sits in the front seat, while Claire and Marcia, her best friend, chatter away in the back. As Claire's father unloads the car trunk, a stranger suddenly approaches. The trunk slams shut, and another man slips into the driver's seat. Casey, suspicious, realizes it is not Claire's father. Claire tries to stall by saying the man entered the wrong car. Casey freezes as the man puts on a mask and sprays Claire and Marcia unconscious. She tries to slip away, but he quickly knocks her out. When she regains consciousness, Casey finds herself in a dim room with Claire and Marcia. A man in glasses enters, sternly takes Marcia, and later returns with her in tears. Marcia says Dennis wanted her to dance for him. As Claire tries to reassure them, Casey recalls a childhood memory, her Uncle John telling a hunting story while she sat with her father. Meanwhile, at a psychotherapy clinic, news of the abduction spreads. Dr. Karen, an elderly psychotherapist, notices that a patient named Barry has scheduled an appointment. Elsewhere, Claire urges the others to fight back, but Casey insists on caution, promising to help after thinking through a plan. In another flashback, young Casey sits in a tent as her father teaches her to hunt. At Dr. Karen's clinic, Barry arrives with sketches, claiming fashion inspiration. She probes with questions, deliberately adding false details, but Barry deflects. When he compulsively tidies her desk, she sees signs of a personality shift before he leaves. Back in Captivity, the girls glimpse a woman speaking to Dennis, only to realize it is Patricia, Kevin's female persona, in a red turtleneck and heels. Patricia assures them Dennis won't harm them and closes the door. Later, Dr. Karen discusses dissociative identity disorder with a colleague, who doubts her theories. Inside the room, Marcia and Claire realize Dennis talks to imaginary characters. Soon he enters again as Dennis, scolds them about the bathroom, and orders them to clean it. He mentions they are to become a sacred meal, leaving them horrified. That night, Kevin's childlike persona Hedwig appears in a yellow windbreaker, cheerfully warning that someone is on the move. The girls now believe he truly has multiple personalities. Noticing Hedwig's naivety, Casey tries to manipulate him, claiming Patricia and Dennis plan to sacrifice him too, and that they are his babysitters trying to protect him. She urges him to show them the way out, but he grows suspicious and leaves. Through the cracks, Casey sees him fumbling with another lock. The girls pound the walls for a weak spot. Claire finds one in the ceiling and begins tearing at it with her heels. Hedwig returns angrily, demanding they open the door. Claire loosens the metal grating while the others push against the door. Suddenly, Hedwig shifts into Dennis and bursts in with force. Claire crawls into the ceiling, with Dennis chasing after her. She hides in a locker, but Dennis finds her, orders her out, and forces her to remove her sweater before locking her in another room. He then returns to Casey and Marcia, repairs the ceiling, and warns that Claire will be kept away from them. He also forced them to remove their skirts and sweaters. Meanwhile, Dr. Karen was holding a video conference with her fellow psychotherapists from Paris. She discussed the clinical evidence in her patients with dissociative identity disorder and the great possibility that the brain could unlock all the identities it possesses. After the conference, Barry came to see her, but she quickly realized that Barry was in another persona. Dr. Karen tested him by saying that she wanted to talk to his other personalities, but Barry refused. She suspected that it was Dennis who had taken over Barry. Barry insisted that neither Dennis nor Patricia was in control of him because they were unstable and not allowed to appear in public. Barry began to grow frustrated as Karen continued to challenge him. After the session, Dr. Karen checked the CCTV footage and realized that Dennis or Patricia was indeed pretending while taking over Barry's identity. Marcia realized that they needed to find an escape route while they were still alive. While she was talking, Casey dozed off and drifted into a childhood memory of when she went hunting with her father and Uncle John. Her father had just shot a deer in the forest. Patricia fed Marcia and tidied up Casey and Marcia. She then invited them to a proper meal in the kitchen because they were good girls, unlike the isolated Claire. While Patricia was preparing the food, Marcia boldly struck Patricia with a stool. Dennis immediately took over, forcing Casey to lock herself in the room and finding Marcia trembling in fear. He punished her by locking her in a separate room. Dennis warned Casey that the beast was coming soon to devour them. In another hunting memory, young Casey stared into the forest while her father was asleep. Uncle John pointed a gun at the innocent child. Casey woke up with Hedwig hugging her from behind. Hedwig revealed that Barry and Patricia decided who could stay in the light, but Hedwig was different. He also said that only Patricia and Dennis believed in the existence of the beast. Unsure of who the beast really was, Casey asked if Hedwig had ever seen him. Hedwig distracted her by asking for permission to kiss her. Casey awkwardly allowed him. After telling Hedwig that he was a good kisser, she asked him to sneak her into his room so they could dance and listen to music. But Hedwig left to attend Barry's appointment with Dr. Karen. During the session, Dr. Karen spoke to Dennis instead of Barry, hinting that his beliefs were irrational, just as Barry had reported in previous sessions. She flattered Dennis to gain his trust. Dr. Karen explained that if Dennis did not open up, then all the other identities would eventually take over the light at once. Dennis finally confessed that he and Patricia were often ridiculed by the other 22 identities. The reason he kept pretending was to protect the weak Kevin. Karen challenged him to tell the story of the beast, which she believed was only Dennis and Patricia's fantasy. After the session, Hedwig took Casey to his room. Casey entered hesitantly. Hedwig danced wildly to loud music from the stereo. Afterward, he pointed at a drawn window and accused Casey of trying to escape through it. Hedwig then handed Casey Dennis's walkie-talkie. Casey tried to contact someone and reported her situation, but Hedwig quickly took it back. He then escorted Casey back to her room. Dennis appeared in his formal attire and glasses. He explained that the beast would be pleased once the night was over. In another flashback, Uncle John hid behind a large rock and called little Casey, who was walking in the forest without her father. He was completely naked and told Casey to undress, pretending they were playing animal roles that had no clothes. When it was over, Casey sat above his hiding spot holding a rifle. She loaded it and aimed at Uncle John, but he quickly snatched it away for safety. That night, Dr. Karen visited Dennis at his house. Dennis took her to Barry's room and began recounting Kevin's traumatic childhood. Dennis explained that he came to Kevin's rescue by pleasing his mother through orderliness and precision. Dr. Karen tried to convince him that Kevin could be saved without the 23 different personalities. Dennis dismissed her by describing the form of the beast. Dr. Karen mentioned that the beast feasts on impure young women, but Dennis was reluctant to explain further. Unprepared and fearful, Dr. Karen ended the discussion, promising to continue in the next session. She went to the bathroom and wandered down the hallway. In one room, she found Claire, but Dennis attacked her with a poisonous spray. Casey tried to unlock the door from inside, while the other two attempted to free themselves. Dennis went to the mall to buy a bouquet of flowers. On his way home, Casey managed to enter a room with a computer, where she discovered all the video recordings of the 23 different identities. Dennis went into an abandoned train car, where he transformed into the 24th identity. His body became taller, bulkier, and moved more wildly than any of the 23 identities. He sprinted home as the beast. Meanwhile, Karen, who had fainted, woke up and scribbled notes at a table. With blurry vision, she grabbed a bread knife and stabbed him from behind, but the blade broke. The beast crushed the crying doctor to death. After watching the videos, Casey discovered the location of the keys and quietly moved through the hallway searching for Marcia and Claire. Marcia had already been found dead and bloodied in one of the rooms. Claire was still alive, but the beast dragged her away and consumed her organs. Casey found a note from Karen but froze in horror when the beast began crawling along the wall. She started calling his real name repeatedly, louder each time, until he weakened. Kevin, the original identity, took over the body, recalling how his abusive mother used to call him while wielding a whip. Kevin had no awareness of what the other identities had done. Kevin begged Casey to shoot him with the gun inside a cabinet, but she hesitated. Casey watched as the kind Kevin shifted into all the major identities one by one. When Hedwig briefly appeared, Casey searched for the gun. She realized Kevin was about to transform into the beast, so she ran through the room searching for bullets. The beast had already risen, and before Casey could load the bullets, he grabbed her and tore her sweater apart. Casey retrieved the gun from the floor, stood up, and locked herself inside a cage. With her calves wounded, she dragged herself into the farthest corner of the cell. In a flashback, young Casey sat silently when Uncle John appeared from behind. It was her father's funeral. Uncle John promised he would take care of her. Casey aimed the gun at the beast, who was swiftly moving through the dark corridor. Just as she was taught to hunt, she fired. With only 2 bullets, Casey soon realized that the beast was invincible. The beast bent the bars with his bare hands, but then noticed the scars on Casey's body. Recognizing Casey's purity, the beast stepped back and left her alive. Later, a man entered the basement and found Casey inside the cage. He helped her out of the zoo's enclosure. While a medical officer treated Casey, the police searched Kevin's possessions in the basement. Kevin entered an empty room where all the major identities took turns taking the light. They began assessing Kevin's body, recognizing the undeniable proof of the beast's strength. A news anchor reported the horrifying murders of 3 victims by Kevin Crumb in the zoo's basement. The once skeptical world was finally forced to realize that dissociative identity disorder truly exists.